Alright, I am completely certain that I've fallen for rage bait and I am enraged. So I seen a video, we're not going to discuss about the creator of said video, who said that One Piece isn't political. And it's so loud and wrong that I seriously can't think of a single element of One Piece that isn't political. Everything is not just political, but blatantly political. Hammer it in your head. And if you don't see that, the only thing I can think of is either you're watching it with your eyes closed and sound off, but I suppose you could also be reading it in the sub form and you just can't read. But then you're still looking at it, and I feel you should be able to get it from the pictures. But whatever. I need to go through every single arc and just list out off the top of my head the political themes in each single section and try to find a single element that is not blatantly political. Bear with me. Again, I have fallen for the rage bait entirely. Alright, romance done, and like introduction arc of the East Blue. We're going to hold off on Luffy and his devil fruit till later, but like the introduction of Zoro. We have him and Quina, his best friend, the political message of women in society, are men stronger, can she be the world's greatest swordsman, following her dream, going into the oppression of, was it Axe Hand Morgan, corruption of the Marines onto the people, but Kobe being like, his dream is to become a Marine to help people. You have his backstory of, you could argue redemption, as he was forced to work for a pirate. Does his past mean he can't be a good Marine? Of course not. No one's above redemption in that sense. Not that he was ever a bad person or he done this of his own free will, but his dreams become Marine, he goes for that. But we also see the corruption within it at a very early start. We have Sanji, which, I mean, come on, his whole motivation with the aside of his treatment towards women is just like, someone is hungry. They can't afford food. I'm going to feed them anyway. Try and stop me. If you can't see a political message too, everyone deserves food, I don't know what to tell you. Nami, you have, again, there's racism towards the fishmen immediately popped up. In this case, the fishmen's racism towards human. We had the whole cycle later on, and how the government's involved in that. We have political corruption again, as the fishmen are paying off the government so they can continue to exploit this town. You have talk of capitalism, as Nami has realized the only way she can help her people is through getting more money. Money means safety. Money means security in this society. So corruption of the government's exploitation of the general common people in society, greed, and everything like that in the first couple arcs there. I will kind of give you a pass on the political aspects of Syrup Village. They're there, but they're not as blatant as it's been in the earlier arcs. But it still looks at different classes of society, as Kai is very rich, can afford to stay home and be taken care of, but how she can also be manipulated. Those wanting to take advantage of her for money, especially with, was it Kuro? With the blades and a cat blade burglar guy? I mean, it's still there. You have Usopp and lying, and it's more of a tale of deception and the boy who cried wolf, but also a heartbreaking story as he's calling for his father and people around him. So lighter on the political messages, but not completely absent. Perceived power, perception of power, respect, and how that can be used to manipulate a situation and the people around you. Gathering like good deeds, courtesy, respect, only to use that to your advantage later so you can lie to people. Let's go with that. And also, I'm suddenly remembered of a V for Vendetta quote, like, artists use lies to tell the truth while politicians use it to cover up the truth. So there can definitely be some thought there. Maybe even like compliance is an illusion for peace. We comply to these ideals. We don't believe the pirates are coming, therefore they'll never come. I'm shaky with this one. Especially if you look at it from a view of holding someone accountable. If some person makes an accusation of someone, but due to reputation, this person is not viewed as someone who could do harm, therefore they get away with it. I mean, I'll take that, in addition to what it means to be a good person in terms of, like, Luffy's identity of what it means to be a pirate. And that will carry through the entire arc, as a pirate is looking for freedom, not to oppress others, but to live one's own life and never to hurt one's friends, especially not to tramp on others to get you what you want, to harm others for your own gain. Yeah, it's definitely got a political message there. Then we go to Logetown, and it's like the seat, or the hometown of Roger. We go to the idea of an execution. The process of an execution in general is a political topic. Don't get me wrong, if an actual bad person did something bad, in my soul, I want to say, yeah, death penalty. But the cost of executing a death penalty in the One Piece world, and the chances of you executing a innocent person is actually very high, so it's not worth it from a general standpoint. I gotta keep reminding myself that the death sentence is actually a bad thing. But in this world, Roger, what he do as a pirate, that was so bad. But also, like, we know the political standings in the One Piece world and the world government, like the rules of justice and courts, not exactly the most legal thing here. When dreams and power collide, so whether it was Gold Roger, whether it's Luffy, whether it's plenty of pirates who just set off for the course of freedom and the government hampering down on that, Roger being executed for what he learned, but also what he inspired. So power colliding with dreams, definitely a big focus in One Piece. Individual power and freedom versus the government and institutions' power and idea of what you should be doing. Heading into like Drum Island and like introducing a chopper, I mean, everyone deserves medical care, and he would treat even his enemies. As he looks to find a cure for all diseases. I can't imagine he's going to charge for his work. That's a political message. We got different, like, exploration. Nami ends up picking up a disease because we don't have a vaccine for it anymore because it's in an ancient world. How about that? I just can't. I can't with this. So, the dangers of a monarch with Warple and how he would keep medical care all for himself and private doctors not helping his citizens, and then Chopper wanting it for everybody and the rest of the city, town, island wanting it for everyone. Speaking of monarchs, we get Vivi later on. We go to Alabasta, the care she has for her country, the need for people to listen to her, the idea of hearing what one is saying is so hammered in as we have a full-on civil war due to corruption of an outsider planted by the underworld government control as a warlord, and the exploitation of resources, harnessing for oneself and causing suffering elsewhere. Moving on from political corruption at the highest level to Sky Island, that's just Jack and the Beanstalk meets Indiana Jones with a awful big handful of colonization, native land rights, and fighting over land resources from the original settlers in that area versus newcomers who've been there for generations, who has a right to sacred land and the resources of it. Displacement of the native population, theological rule with someone claiming to be a god, and does he have divine right to rule? How about suppression of history? This is when we get like a poneglyph with ancient language on it being introduced. We might have been introduced to it a bit before, but like we are introduced to there being a hidden history to the world, which was also brought up in Alabasta with Robin looking for the secret of this 100-year void century that has been suppressed by the governments. Water 7. Ennis Lobby. We have assassins working to undercover to steal information from this location, and then we get a full-on terrible execution where we know there will be no trial. She's being brought up to be executed, and Frankie having his heartfelt speech of saying, your life, your existence, being alive is not a crime. So we have government overreach beyond all reason, and then we have a declaration of war as we burn the flag of the world government, declaring war for the sake of our friends, again, whose existence is not a crime, as we go into her tragic backstory that focus on a genocide for daring to investigate what the government has deemed forbidden knowledge of the past, to hide their crimes, and then they blame it on a child because, all these civilians died because we blew up their ship, but we're going to blame it on this person because she's an outsider and she's different, and we're going to erase her history from the map to the point that my poor girl draws it into little atlases whenever she can to keep that history alive. Thriller bark, we got, I guess the ethics of, hey, just because you can do something, maybe you shouldn't, as we, like, raise the dead. I mean, that doesn't seem like an ethical thing to do. There's definitely politics involved in that. I'm not sure about Brooke, because that's just sad and tragic, and wanting to, guess, keep oneself while losing everything and everyone around you. Work and labor exploitation, plus more slavery, because these people who have their shadows stolen are not doing this of their free will. They're being controlled, their bodies used against their will. He brought a woman back to life because he thought she was hot and made her be his servant, taking away her own agency and free will. I also just watched Sinners not long ago, and a big focus on that is how music is, in its sense, political, has its own culture, and passing down history related to the past, your identity, everything there, music being 100% political. And then it made me think about the Bink Sack song, because come on, there is no way that is not a message from the Void Century, carrying out through history, persisting despite the government trying to erase the entire culture of the Void Century and that ancient kingdom, and this has persisted throughout history. That gotta be true. Going into, like, Sabaody, I mean, there's a slave auction as the, not war, but prejudice against fishmen is on full display as we go into more depth of it to see how that triggered Arlong in the past, as all he wanted to do was go to an amusement park like the one at Sabaody, but he never could, and he created his own home because of the trauma that he had here, and how he never would have went right. Oh, we gotta wait till Fishman Island for that conversation. But, like, we have an auction house protected by the world's government as one of our friends is being sold. I mean, come on. I think this is the first time we see how terrible the celestial dragons are, as your life can be taken away from looking at them wrong, crossing their path, punching them in the face, as we see the hierarchy of the government and those who are suppressed and those at the top of this hierarchy. Also, forced marriage, like, hey, comes across a random citizen. You're pretty hot, be my 20-something's wife. What? I'm already engaged, this is my fiance. Shoots him, no jury, no, just pure execution on the streets. All right, now come be my wife, drags her away, and I'm just like, can't talk about it, because spoilers for later on, but a different flashback, which crushed my heart and soul. Kidnapping, forced marriage, forced birth, terrible time. Amazon Lily, we got a society ruled entirely by women, so there's politics involved in that as we're dealing with a monarchy. There's exile involved. There's Boa's tragic backstory involving, again, slavery. How fishmen came to save her. Fish tiger, tigerfish. I always get the order of his name wrong. I just can't deal with it. It's also ruled by the strong. I feel like that's a political message. The ones whoever is the strongest makes the rules, because I always right, no matter how despicable my actions can be, no matter how many puppies I kick, I am beautiful, and in this world, beauty is strong in her opinion. Like, she's the strongest, she's also the most beautiful. So she can do whatever she wants, and no one can stop her. Impel down, so, no jury whatsoever. You just cross this path, and after this prison you're going to, there's going to be no way out. It's no jury or anything like that. That's a little bit more Marineford. We'll get into that. But, like, locking prisoners away forever, and then some of them just escaping and going missing. Oh, yeah. How about we throw them into boiling lava or set all these traps for them? That can't be very ethical or politically correct. There's a lot of cruelty of the justice system in general and overreach of the government. Marineford is a full-on war to get someone back, conflict between families as they are on different sides of said war, and again, no one had a fair trial. You got propaganda of how the world government was presenting and televising the war, making it seem like they were in the right and the pirates were attacking. You have the fact that there was another, you could argue, bordering on, it wouldn't be a genocide. It's definitely a persecution, where they were trying to track down Roger's child and knew the time frame that they would theoretically be born in. I can't imagine they let anyone live. It's implied heavily that all children in this time period on this island, and likely the women with them, were executed to try to prevent Roger's child from being born. Magma Bastard's absolute justice, and how he will sacrifice the innocent to see that his version of justice is carried out, to execute who he feels as guilty, would sacrifice Marines who just want to go home to the families, who realize that the war is over, and is, like, calls them a coward and was willing to execute them. Even those, like, standing up to his authority is like, that's an executable offense. and the government's need to silence what they view as like a dangerous or rebellious truth from the public. So Ace, while a pirate and illegal in this world, he wasn't being executed for any of his crimes that he committed while being a pirate. He was being executed because of what he represented, because of his bloodline, because of what Roger did, the sins of the father, the will of D, and just stuff they are trying to keep down and conquer over and eliminate. The iconic moment where Whitebeard shouts that the One Piece is real, getting that message that Roger had started back into the public, into the conversation, to bring forth into light what the world government is trying to hide. It's like they don't want people to find the truth of the Void Century, of the One Piece, of everything. So for Whitebeard to reestablish that the One Piece is real, someone will find it someday, direct FU to the government. Post Marineford, with the most heartbreaking flashback that I've ever experienced in my life, as you make me fall even more in love with Ace after making me mourn for him as Luffy's brother and now mourn for him as a character. Thank you, Oda, for breaking my heart. Society differences, as Sabo's family came from wealth and then they're living in a literal junkyard with bandits and riding tigers. The dealing with family, people stealing one's money so you have to hide it. The fact that they burned the place down rather than deal with them because it was sore sight eyesight of it. The celestial dragons tributes based on like certain people, and if we exile this many people, then it's less we have to pay and that's more on the poor. I'm sure taxes were probably involved. That's all the celestial dragon tributes are anyway, is taxes. Fishman Island, racism, full display, prejudice against them, the cycle of hatred, and how if one experience, especially in childhood, experience such anger around them, it will change who they are as a person and just cause them to repeat that cycle even though they didn't even personally experience that pain. They will just inflict it on others, and the importance of protecting the children to not show them this kind of violence, raise them in a way to make them good people. Hell, we even have a vote on whether or not they should rise to the surface. It's not like the queen just goes, I want to do this, so we will. No, she takes a vote and listens to her people. Slavery, racism, historical trauma, the fact that Fisher Tiger didn't believe that we could coexist between fishmen and humans, but the queen did believe that there can be coexistence, and how they had wanted the same thing, wanted peace, wanted freedom, but didn't know how to go about it, one through violence, one through more peaceful and democratic means. I love the blood donation because it's a cultural taboo, but there's no real reason other than prejudice for it, and to overcome that with Luffy and Jinbei, I thought was absolutely beautiful because Fisher Tiger could never get over that hatred of humans that rested in his heart for what they did to him and his people. But more so than that, granted, it's a conspiracy theory in my head, but the drug use in Fishman Island, I refuse to believe that we're not going to get a reveal at some point in time that showed in the past the world government was the one to give them those drugs, to sow corruption within the Fishman people, to give reasoning and an excuse for their treatments, like, oh, these are just drug addicted monsters, see how they act, to sow corruption and distrust in their own people. Like, it's gotta be a commentary with the similar to like the CIA and giving coke to black communities. I gotta be. I refuse to believe that it's not going to be a reveal eventually. Punk Hazard. Experimentation, also on children, not good. Bioterrorism, government overreach, again, as this is a government building, and they're just like, yeah, continue to experiment on the children's, we don't mind. Oh, let's have a fight over here and change the very makeup of the island itself and turn into fire and ice. I'm pretty sure environmental damage and messages being said. Dressrosa, just a full-on dictatorship in combination with, selling of weapons, arms trade, there we go. More slavery, suppression of one's history, propaganda, just take your pick, all of Dressrosa. Rebellion, the government's coming in and doing shit all to help, and then realizing, oh yeah, we did shit all to help. Thanks, pirates, for cleaning up our mess. And also, let's take credit for you cleaning up our mess. More propaganda. Okay, technically Fujitora stopped the government from taking credit, but only because he knew that they took credit for Dressrosa and took credit for bringing down Crocodile when really it was the pirates. We got Zoe, so focus more on native individuals. We have, I'm sure there was more exploitation of resources, hidden history with the poneglyphs, the pain and remembrance that war can cause Just all of it. Outside occupation of a foreign country is Zhou part of the world government? I don't think so. Yet they came aboard and started torturing people. Was Jack world government? He was a fish man. My apologies, Jack was part of the Beast Pirates. So, torturous occupation by a foreign government and coming here, not necessarily the world government, but still terrible. Whole Cake Island, so we got a political marriage going on, we got alliances, we got a war, we got conflict between Big Mom, Kaido, Luffy. There's family politics, exploitation, there's a monarchy involved, inheritance, nobility, lots of right to rule and people in charge taking advantage of those and their birthrights. The Reverie is just like a diplomatic meeting where they're all discussing world events, and then of course slavery. Lots of slavery. Global political attention, how they're going to deal with conflicts in the world as the freaking, what are they called? Revolutionary Army gets involved. Yeah, this show's definitely not political. I swear people can't read. Just people can't read. They gotta like watch the dub or something because they can't handle the sub to actually say this isn't political. Going into Wano, another dictatorship, exploitation of the people, dealing with resources and famine, and the wealthy have lots of food and the poor are starving. There's the fact that one's willing to crush an entire part of the country to expand their own rule. Going into Egghead, there's the new weapons that can destroy an entire country. We watch an entire country get destroyed. Technology progressing. The fact that Vegapunk was complicit in the suppression of the world's history and everything being destroyed. Destruction of O'Hara, as he didn't speak up to stop it or help the Revolutionary Army when they got involved. People saving history as they took the books out of the lake to save and preserve it. I was a little harsh on Vegapunk here, but he was working for the world government. He did create the technology that brought about the Mother Flame, giving them more power. He just seen it more as scientific advancement, and that would be good for the whole. He's looking to better the world. He has good intentions, and the world government has the resources to help the most people. So fine, he had a good place in his heart. But then the world government is crushing his scientific findings. Like, oh, he knows the world is going to flood. Would the world government allow that to happen? No, of course not. They're going to hamper that information from getting out to the public. So what's he do? He blasts it on a giant TV screen across the entire world to tell the world what the world government is hiding from them. And then there's the Kuma flashback. I can't go into the Kuma flashback. It hurts too much. Slavery, forced marriage, forced birth, terrible times, God Valley, another genocide. We're going in. I'm stopping at Egghead. We're not going into God Valley right now. All right, took some notes to be a little bit more organized. Big points of political elements here. We have corruption of government and authority, namely stuff like Alabasta, Water 7's Lobby, Dressrosa, the Reverie, Egghead. Social inequality and class systems. Sabaody, Fishman Island, Dressrosa, Wano, basically everything. Racism. All of it, especially ones that involve Fishman, the Totanas, literally everything. Freedom versus control is a big one, especially with Luffy involved. And, say Marineford would be a good one, as we look at Garp, who just wants, like, peace, and Luffy wants freedom, and Garp thinks the world government's safety and security in these elements make up for their bad elements, but really we know it doesn't. Propaganda and information control, especially when we're looking at how things are broadcasted and the newspapers telling the situations involved, especially stuff like Dressrosa, where the government took advantage of the situation and took credit for bringing down Crocodile. Revolutionary politics, especially focusing in the Reverie. War and militarism just in general, like there's so many wars and genocides that have happened in this story. Looking at science and just ethics around it, experimentation on people, whether that's going to be the creation of the smile fruit or it's going to be the effects of punk hazard. Suppression of one's history, burying the knowledge and genocide that you have performed in the past, but just anything that burns books and history. And just ideas of monarchy and who has the right to rule, looking after one's people. Going back to Luffy's devil fruit, we learn it is the sun god Nika, a god of liberation, possibly destruction. And when he awakens his devil fruit, we hear the drums of liberation. We have full-on churches and religion who worship Nika and dream of someone who would protect them, liberate them from their oppressors. I can't with people. It's rage bait. It's rage bait, and I'm falling for it. Going forward, we have to learn the truth about the Void Century, and I'm sure there's going to be more political corruption, craziness, and war that happened as we're dealing with the first pirates. We're dealing with a system that destroyed an ancient empire and created the form of government that we now currently have. We're going to have a change in the world government that we currently have in this system as people are rebelling against it, both in the Revolutionary Army and even from within different Marines. I can see Sword getting involved as they are separate from the current Marine system. We have multiple countries that are rebelling against the world government and the consequences of that. So more is going to be involved as we end with the final arc of a full-on war and getting to Laugh Tale and learning the history there that caused Roger to laugh. I seriously can't think of one element of the story that does not have some kind of political undertones or overtones to it. And it's so blatantly obvious. Like, at first I'm like, Luffy doesn't like cherry pie and Blackbeard does. But then I'm like, subjective reality or something. Like, dynamic between characters and what they value. I'm sure you could argue something about that. Jinbei, his history with Fisher Tiger, the way his death happened in terms of he couldn't let go of his own internal prejudice, Fisher Tiger, when the possibility of taking human blood happened, and he rejected it because he couldn't bear to do that as his hatred of humans had seeped in because of humans' hatred towards fishmen, even though the blood is compatible. Yamato and Kiku, as well as Bon Clay, everyone in Impel down in that secret level with the Vankov. You have explorations of gender and whether that's trans or non-binary or anything in between and more. I can't, there's too many. There's too many political messages in One Piece to even list them all. But yeah, the series that says, f the government, f overreach, trans rights are human rights, friendship is key, you deserve to exist, your existence isn't illegal. The one that discusses, I don't know, 4 different genocides, racism, an arms race, selling of weapons, I already mentioned slavery, and exploitation of resources and land, and native rights, and just hurting of the people, taxing them. Yeah, no, there are no political messages in One Piece whatsoever. Alright, my ending was a little mean and condescending and insulting, so we're gonna stop here. But in conclusion, One Piece is packed full with political meanings in the story, and it wouldn't be One Piece without it. So to anyone who says it's not political and it's just like, oh, fun pirates going about their merry way and having adventures, I don't know what story you're watching. Or reading. Not a clue. You're not reading it, that's for sure. Alright, that is all I got. I will talk to you later. Bye.